Welcome back, everybody, to Unconditional Surrender. Me, myself, and I play through the main event scenario. We're getting ready to go into the March 1944 turn. Game is published by GMT Games, designed by Salvatore Vasta. And we will begin with rolling the weather and see what happens. In the cold zone for March, we roll a 4. A 4 is severe. So under the new optional rules, that means April will be poor. Because you can't have the same thing as the previous month in April. You can't have the same thing as in March. In the mild zone, we roll a 4 as well, which is also severe, which means in April we will either have fair or poor. And in the warm zone, we roll a 1, which in March, April means that it is fair weather in the warm zone. You might think, oh, that's great, but if you look at the map, most of the Germans are in the mild zone. There's nothing really in the warm zone for the Allies to attack, so except at Marseille. So the warm zone in the Mediterranean doesn't really help me very much. So that's weather. We go on to declare war phase, and I'm going to stop here and get my timer started. Okay, so now I have my timer going, so I hopefully won't run over. Strategic warfare. Nobody's going to declare war. The economy phase. The Germans are still at 36, British at 34, and the Russians are at 40. Germany's not going to give any to its allies because it's been struggling to spend all its points here every turn. And so we go on into the strategic warfare phase. The Germans are at +1 because of their airplane in Norway. The Russians start off at +2. They do know that they're getting another partisans marker in April. So, sort of in conjunction with the West, we're going to try and put a hurt on Germany. So the Allies are going to be trying to do something about Germany's production. Germany has 2 submarines, and just like last turn, I'm thinking, hey, get one back from the Russians, you lose it to the West, it's not that big a deal. So, you keep yourself at the 36, which is a good place to, it's 1 down from maximum, which seems like a good thing. So when we get to commitment, the Germans say, yeah, we're going to commit. They throw in their submarine. And surprisingly, the Russians will go ahead and throw in their partisans. So both sides' die rolls are halved. So the Germans roll a 3, +1 is a 4, halved to a 2. And the Russians roll a 5, +2 is 7, which is halved to 3.5, rounds up to a 4. And a 2 to a 4 on the combat result table is an AS, which means the Germans actually go down another factory. So now they have 3 lost factories. And then we roll to see when things come back. The German submarines come back in 1 turn. So I'll have them again in April. The Russian partisans come back also in 1 turn. So they will have both their partisans next turn. Now we go on to the West. Germans are still +1. The Americans in the war starts us off at +2, and we have 2 bombed markers. And we're slightly ahead of the game. I think here, knowing the Germans know that they're getting 1 back, they're definitely going to want to throw their sub to try and regain 1. And the Western Allies, like I said, we're making a concerted effort to make a dent in the German thing. So we go to commitment and everybody commits. So we're halved again. So the Germans roll 2 + 1 is a 3, halved to a 1.5, rounds up to a 2. And the Western Allies roll a 1, +4 is a 5. Halves to 2.5, rounds up to a 3. And a 2 to a 3 is the Germans get back one of their factories. So that failed miserably. Then we roll to see when we get our stuff back. First off, Germans go back up to 2 lost factories. So they'll be at 36 again next turn. Actually more, because I think they get a economic reform marker. The German submarines come back in. Excuse me. I just sneezed there. They come back in 6 turns. Ouch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not till September. And the Allies Ultra comes back in 1 turn. So, we'll be able to do this better next turn, maybe. So, hopes were to get them to be at -4 factories, but they're still only at -2. So, we are trying, but things aren't going well in strategic warfare. Strategic movement, the Germans... What do we do here? Is there anything really to strategically move? Maybe something in the east? Well, first thing they have to do is go do this. Get this off the guy and onto the card. It is fair weather down here in Bordeaux and Marseille. So you could see, like, maybe an American invasion of Bordeaux. They do have a surprise attack marker. The question is whether that's really appropriate. Or no, that's not in the warm zone, is it? No, that's in... Never mind. The only thing that can is debatable is Marseille, and that's really not... I don't have units strong enough to really take it, so... Okay, so I don't have to worry about that. It's severe up here, so I don't have to worry about invasions in France. So I don't think the Germans have one. And I'm pretty sure the British don't have one. They don't have any shenanigans to do right now. So they don't have one. And the Soviets, definitely not. Okay. We're into Axis operations phase. It is severe over here in the cold zone, which means... wrong button. Weather track. Severe in the cold, severe in the west. That's actually not good for me. I would have much rather had poor here in Russia, because I'm not sure I can extradite myself. I can get to a +3, +4. Do you go +3, +1? +3 to 1? Or +4 to 1? +4 to 1 would put the first there. Yep, I think we have to do this. We're going to activate the 20th, move it to 2747. He's going to assault the 6th guard. Zoom this in so we get a little better view of what I'm doing. Then we're also going to activate the 1st, and we're going to activate the 4th. And they are going to assault the 6th guard. And I should go take off 3 production points for that, for the Germans. So you start off as +2 for German, and then +1 for each of his buddies. And the Russians start off at +1. So we're +4 to +1, but we have our die rolls. The Germans are all 6 + 4 is a 10, half to a 5. The Germans have a 5. The Russians cannot be retreated, so they're going to lose a step if they roll too low. They roll a 1. +1 is a 2, goes down to a 1. A 5 to a 1 is a DR. The Russians have no legal retreat route, so they are flipped. but at least the first army's still in supply this turn. And maybe I can withdraw into the swamps next turn when it's going to be poor weather. That's about the best I could do on that front there. I could do a +2 to a +1 here against the first guard, but at this point I'm not sure that that's even worth it. Yeah, I think that's might be worth it. So we're going to activate the 2nd Panzer and the 6th. That makes me +2 net. +2 for the armor starts off as +2. He's the primary. Adds 1 for a buddy. That's +1. I do have. Oh, now I wish I would have added the artillery on that 6th guards. I would have eliminated it, but I didn't. I could add my heavy artillery here to try and ensure a retreat here, but I'm thinking it might be more important in the poor weather when I have some airplanes and things to deal with the Russians. Let's try this. +2 to +1. The Germans are all 3. +2 is a 5. Have 2. 2.5 rounds up to a 3. Oh, wrong guy's highlighted here. We're attacking there. This one's done. And the Russians roll a 1. +1 is a 2. Have 2. A 1. And the Germans rolled a 3 + 2 is a 5. Have to 2.5 rounds up to a 3. A 3 to a 1 is a DR. Yes, it is. So I got some good splits there. I can force him to retreat. And then this guy will move forward to kind of help, keep the Russians kind of off their guard. Oh, one thing I needed to note, I had miscounted the Russians last turn, so the 4th Infantry was put back in Bryansk. It would not have been able to move to 2648 because I had too many. I forgot to count this guy when I was counting up my stuff. I kept forgetting to count him, the guy that I had moved up in to 1549. I had moved him out of the way so my armor could be up front, and so I redressed it. It didn't make that much difference on what the Germans were going to do as far as builds and things anyway. Gee, I could go on the offensive with the Germans. It's fair in Italy, which would mean that their airplanes could defend them, and I probably would just run up sorties. The LaGuardia? Oh, I've got a garrison unit here. I'm going to go ahead and move this garrison that I just built 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into Rotterdam. So that's another one. So let's see. I started at 36. I spent 1, 2, 3, and then I spent 3 more. 1, 2, 3. Oops, not the Hungarians. And that was 3 more for the other attack, and then 1 for this guy, so I'm down to 29. I'm going to try my ridiculous attack. 3rd Panzer and the 5th Panzer. Each activate for 4 more. That puts me down to 25. Then they assault the 1st Canadian. It basically comes down to a +3 to a +1. That's +1 because they're Canadian, because they're British. +2 from one of the Panzers, because he starts at 2, so the one that's outside of Cherbourg is the primary. He's +2. He starts off as 2 as the German. I get +1 for the other guy, because armor and aircraft don't count in severe. So, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, I've spent 11. And +3 to +1. Germans are all +6. +3 is a 9. Half to 4.5 rounds up to a 5. And the British roll, a 4 plus 1 is a 5, rounds down to, halves down to 2.5, rounds up to a 3. A 5 to a 3 is a DR. So the Canadians are pushed back again. And the Panzer will take the space. Yeah, it's not not a whole lot really going on here, but it's something. I really don't know of any other important German moves. I mean, I could put this infantry up here in 2714, but he can't invade this turn, so I can wait. I really don't see any reason to try and attack down here against the British because they can use airplanes and they have tanks markers for their garrisons, so they'd be at least like at +3s. I could be like a +4. Pretty much I'm just holding out for another turn, I think. Maybe the LaGuardia needs to move, get himself on a rail line, in case I need to rail him around next turn. That's probably a good idea. Let's put him up here, close to the Danube. Spend a point there. And that should put me down to 24. We're going to go around and check and make sure. So there's 4 here, 5 for the guy who moved to Rotterdam. 6 is the guy who moved near the Danube. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Spent 12, started 36, currently at 24. So that seems like a good place to stop. It'll let me replenish. I don't have airplanes to replenish. I have a whole bunch of points that I may not be able to spend. Well, I'd rather have the points and not spend them. So that's going to be the German operations phase. Everything is in supply because I reestablished the supply line by the 20th, moving where it did. The first can trace out to a rail line and then out, and everybody else is within 2 of a rail line. So they all can be in supply. I think I'm going to go ahead and start up the west here. This might go a little bit over doing the west, but it seems like a good thing to do. Let's combine these two. Okay, so we're going to go right into the west. First thing they're going to do, because it's severe weather, we're going to move the bomb markers into the ocean because they shouldn't still be there. And as is my standard operating procedure, is you take the 15th Air Force, and he starts off at -3 for sorties, -2 for a bomber, and then he gets +1 because he's an American. So he's -4. When you have the die roll, best I can get is a 2, which means I'm a 1. The Germans start off at -2 for sorties, and they're +2 for German. So, and they're halved, so they need to roll a 5 or a 6 to have out and come out at a 3 and stop my bombing. So the Germans roll a 5, which is enough. So this guy will take 2. We're going after Bremen, like we always do. And then he takes a sortie. Now he needs to roll a 6, because he's -3. Or -1. Net. The German is. And so the American in Hull does the same thing, going to Bremen. And see what the Germans roll. They have to roll a 6 to stop me this time. And they do. God. They roll exactly what they need. Each time. So they get a 4. And then, which puts 2 on this. And then the British, because now the British can fly in such a way that they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just to show you how the British fly, they go to 25, and then here, because that puts them out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they have to go. They just go north of the row of 26. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If they fly along the row of 25, they avoid the northern airplane and the southern airplanes, and the only one that can reach him is the guy who's -4, which means he can't really do anything. So we're going to go ahead and hit Bremen and Hamburg for 2 sorties. And put down 2 bombed markers. Bremen and Hamburg. So I was hoping that the Germans wouldn't roll like they did last turn, but they did. So only got 2 bombed markers, but I do have an ultra coming, so, and he'll have only 1 submarine, so he has to decide whether he's going to use it on me or on the Russians. So that takes care of the bombing. Standard counterattack. First Canadian and the first armored infantry. American first armored and Canadian first. We're at a net +2. +1 because the Americans, +1 because the American, +1 for a buddy. The Germans start off at +2, so that's where they're at. So it's a +2 to a +2. No allowances for anything to be added in. That's 2 off the British total, so they're down to 32. And then they go ahead and attack at +2 to +2. They roll a 1, they add 2, that's 3, rounds down to a 2, so there's no possible way that they can do anything. And when you have down even a German roll of 6, would like that, becomes an 8, rounds down to a 4. So a 2 to a 4 is just an AS. There's no way that they can get an AA because you can't get high enough die rolls. So the Germans held their ground. Since the Germans didn't attack me, and if they really want to go into the middle, I think I have enough to hold off an infantry assault and be able to retreat in good order. So I'm going to go ahead and activate the 9th as well. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 into Turin. Let's see, I could add attack at +1 to +2. What the heck? I'm going to have the Americans activate as well. We're going to assault the 2nd. We come out as +1 for the Americans, +1 for a buddy, and then -1 because it's rough terrain. And we will have our die rolls. So the Americans roll 3 + 1 is a 4, rounds down to a 2, so they cannot dislodge them. And no matter what the Germans do, they can't take a step, so I'm not even going to bother. So we're done with that. Now we're back to supply, I think. I've done everything I need to do. So these guys will each go up 2 to take care of the British. And this guy will go up to 2 sorties to take care of the Americans. Up here, we'll have the Americans take 2. Oh, wait. Before I do supply, don't I have... Yes, I have stuff to move. Sorry. Don't want to do supply yet. And the Germans have their surface action fleet. So we're going to move the Med fleet and the 3rd convoy. And they go, we're going into C-Zone 7. And the Germans go, oh, what the heck, maybe we can get more sorties on you. I mean, it's... Well, next turn's going to be poor, so it might be better to hit you when you're doing poor to add sorties. So we'll let it go. 1. Out of 7, they go into the box up here. So that's 4, and then 5, 6, 7. And they each take a sortie. Then they will pick up the 3rd armor will activate, and these same guys will bring it back with them. So they go 3 into the North Atlantic. And then, hello. 4 into 7. And the Germans will go ahead and try it now. What the heck? Everything's halved, but so what? Maybe I'll get a 2-for-1 split here. Get some extra sorties on. So the Germans are at +1. We better check the card, hadn't we? Government results table. Let's go over here. Yeah, since severe, you don't. You just have your die rolls. So the Germans are +1. And the British are +2, but then they're -1 for sortie. So we're both at +1. That. And the German surface action rolls. A 2 +1 is a 3. Have down to a 1.5, rounds up to a 2. And the British roll. A 4 +1 is a 5, rounds down to 2.5, rounds up to a 3. So a 2 to a 3 is nothing. So, sorry, wrong side. 2 to a 3 is a diamond, so they get through. The German basically takes 1 sortie for that action, so he comes back in 2 turns. 1, 2, on May. The British here take a sortie because they fought a battle. And then the convoy is going to take another sortie when it drops this guy off in Plymouth. The British are going to have a bunch of points left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to have Fighter Command actually go after the guy southeast of Paris. Was the other thing I was going to do. So, slow down my my supply. That's the other thing I meant to do. Let's go after the German Luft Reserve. Well, I didn't do it, so I'm going to say no. I'm going to allow myself to move this, but I'm not going to backtrack that far. And then this 12th Fleet. Where's the turn track? Do I get a convoy next turn? No, I don't. Okay. So the 12th Fleet. We'll just stay there so it can be cleaned up. Okay, so that's... Okay, and then I had to put... I'm just going to put 2 sorties on this one. 1 for the American, 1 for the British, and the BEF will be supplied by this one. And that's like all there is to that. Very, very fast turn here. Just not a lot to do. When they're in severe, it's real hard for me to get enough pluses because I can't add any of... All my support stuff is what makes things work up here. So not having the support. The Germans could go, like with the 17th. I'm giving them the ability to take back Milan. Or am I not? Ugh. Do I really want to do that? Well, actually I do, because that would... If he puts in his infantry in there and then stays, all I have to do is move back this 9th Army. Could move back into a position to actually force him to be isolated, and then we would kill a German unit and cause a bigger hole towards the Alps. So it's kind of like a gambit, like, hey, look, I gave you a city, you want to take it back? And Germans, being not quite that dumb, are going to say, nah, that's okay. Okay, that is the Western Operations phase. I think. Zoom out a bit. Make sure I didn't miss anything. I did miss that one air attack that I probably should have done. But I should be able to still pull it off unless he pulls away from defending his armor. So just be a little more costly. Yes, I believe that's it. Okay, and the timer just went off, so... I said dismiss. Okay, so the timer just went off, so that works out well. So this is the beginning of turn, Axis, and Western operations phases of March 1944. I'm Dren608. If you like my videos, please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And we will return shortly with the Soviet operations and end of turn phases. This looks to be a fairly fast turn because of the severe weather. Unless I get some really good die rolls, not a lot seems to be going to happen. We'll see you in a little bit. Bye-bye.